Hello friends, it's CraftUs again, and I decided to try making a video in a new format. And you know what I haven't done in a while? Lanterns. So I decided to make a pumpkin like this. And the first place I should start is to make a hollow sphere, which is actually an open mouth. To do that, I make this lump of paper and foil that I coat with clay. I made a huge hole in the front that will be the mouth. And I'll cut a smaller hole in the back with the tongue, that will be the throat. I'll make a small hole on top for the wires and send it to the oven. It's done. To make the back of the throat, I will fill this hole with foil and stick a layer of clay on top of it. After baking, I can pull all the foil out through the mouth. I should get a great throat. Now it's time for the wires. I wrap them in foil because I think that will make it easier to pull them out later on. Now I need to make the rest of the pumpkin. To do this, let's add some more paper and foil around the sphere. Phew, the base is ready. Let's free the mouth from this garbage. Well, my plan worked. I got the throat. And the wires, albeit with difficulty, are pulled out. And now we can start sculpting. First, I'll do an even base layer. I don't care much about its evenness because there are a few other layers ahead. But I still managed to make it fairly even. Now I'll add a thick layer of clay, which will become the upper jaw. For the lower jaw, I will need an even thicker layer of clay. Right, now I can cut away the excess from the upper jaw. It's a bit like a Ninja Turtle head with a very tight mask. Now I'm going to do some more layers of clay to make the pumpkin more rounded. Also, the shell is going to be thick enough that I can mark where the hollows will be and then make them with the tools from the Pimple Squeegee kit. I also want to do the wrinkles and creases around the entire mouth. Don't worry about them looking too rough, I'll smooth them out later. That looks pretty good. Well, now I have time to relax watching my favorite movie and make a couple hundred balls. I am going to use them to make various bulges on the pumpkin. You've probably seen ugly pumpkins with warts on them. I'm gonna do something like this. Maybe I'm a little over the top, or maybe not. Okay, you know the difference between a good character and an evil character? An evil character always has spikes, and my pumpkin is supposed to be a pretty evil character, so I need to stick these triangles on all sides of it. Smaller on the top, bigger on the bottom. But that's not all. I'm gonna bake the smoothest balls and make eyes out of them. I'm actually afraid of spiders, so my choice is spider eyes. This looks really horrible. Okay, if you take a small ball of clay, pull it hard and then twist it, it makes a great tooth. And I like the look of a toothless mouth because the emptiness inside makes me feel anxious, so I'll only put in a few teeth. Now I think it's time to stop. Before I send this to the oven, I need to get rid of fingerprints and small bumps. I will use the isopropyl alcohol for this. It melted the top layer of clay, and with a stiff brush I made the desired texture and smoothed out the corners. And now, while this monster is in the hottest part of my house, where it belongs, I'll make a tongue. The tongue will draw a lot of attention to itself, so I need to try to make it realistic. And to be honest, I was inspired by my own tongue, so I don't think you'll be disappointed if I don't show you a big picture of it. Anyway, I made a frame out of wire in the right shape. And of course wrapped it in foil. At this point I need to be very careful not to make the tongue too big, or it won't fit in the pumpkin's mouth. Then I coat it with clay. And I attach two thin sausages to the underside. In the remaining space between them I create this smooth organic texture. I like doing places in detail that no one will ever see. I guess it's a way of procrastinating. The top of the tongue is covered in papillae, and I think I was able to achieve a very similar texture with a toothbrush. Now I'll use the remaining balls to make large papillae for a change. It looks terrible, and that's what I need. I'm sending it to the oven. The pumpkin is just baked enough. One thing I forgot to do is the tail on top of the pumpkin. I attach a piece of clay and then I attach these blobs to it. I spiralize them and then I smooth them out. Looks like sweet whipped cream with a cherry. To fix it, I add balls to each vein and then smudge them. The top is cut off. Perfect. Now I need to make a base for the pumpkin to attach the tentacles to. To do this, I sit the pumpkin firmly on a piece of clay to make it imprint on it. Perfect. Let's get to the tentacles. This is just a twisted piece of clay. It's not enough. For the long tentacle, I made a conical sausage and took a thin, smooth wire and stuck it inside. But because the wire is thin and smooth, when I bend it, it starts to come out of the clay, and that makes me crazy. So I twisted the wire to have a more clay-retaining surface. Now it's much better. Let's attach all the tentacles we have and see what happens. It's weird that I think of these as tentacles. It would be more correct to call them roots, but for some reason I like it better that way. But still I'll have to work on their relief and make them more root-like. With alcohol I softened the top layer of clay and made grooves with ball styluses. Well, that's not bad, but I want to add a couple more tentacles sticking out here. Besides, I specifically left space for it. I'll take the wire, bend it into shape. I want this tentacle to be bigger than the others, so I add more foil, especially at the bottom. It's already shaped, so I need a little bit of clay. Then I made a thin sausage and wrapped it around the tentacle and then another one. Now I'm going to use a macro spade to smear it really well. It's almost perfect. I'll do a little more texture work and now it's perfect. I've left a little bit of wire and it's not very comfortable. The tentacles kept trying to spread apart, so I had to work hard to get them to hold on tightly. I even put paper under them when baking. And anyway, I still made it. Wait, I forgot something. I need to make a hole for the cable and prepare a small recess for it. Now into the oven. And now we can start painting. I've been wanting to try mixing different colors for a long time with only 3 kinds of paint: blue, yellow and red. And for convenience, I put the paint in syringes, and instead of a brush I'll use a makeup sponge. See how easy it is to adjust the amount of paint. And I added a drop of black paint to make the color darker. Okay, now I'm playing the paint with the sponge and I don't like what I'm getting because the paint doesn't get into the hard to reach places. So for the base coat I'll use a brush. But I like the way the sponge gently blends the paint. The next layers of paint will be lighter in color than the previous ones. The main thing is to leave less paint on the sponge, it should be almost dry. In this way I will make each layer lighter and lighter. Notice how soft the transition between the layers are. I apply the last layer of paint only on the most protruding surfaces. Dreamy and mystical, I really like the way it looks. But let's not get distracted and let's paint the pumpkin right away. I mixed red and blue in equal proportions. It's the color of wine. That's the color I'll paint inside the mouth. Then I mixed yellow with red and a little bit of blue. I got a nice dark pumpkin color. Always remember that acrylics will darken after drying. I made a new color without blue, only yellow and red. When coloring with the sponge, use frequent but light strokes. This will prevent the edge of the sponge from leaving marks. Then I add more yellow, dipping the back of the sponge because it's wider, so it penetrates even less. The last coat of paint is the lightest, and I apply it to the most bulging areas. I carefully painted the tail at the top with a small brush, and then applied a few lighter coats of paint. Great! I decided to make the eyes black with the blue tint. For realism, I covered them with a glossy varnish. So cute! I simply painted the teeth white and with heavily diluted yellow paint gave them the right shade of color. It was easy with the tongue. First I painted it white. I want the toothbrush marks to stay white and look like plaque. Then I colored it purple and brightened it up. I won't go into it, you can see it all for yourself. It looks good already, but I came up with something special. I happened to see fluorescent varnish at the store, and before that I came across an ultraviolet LED, and then I realized they were made for each other. So I painted these words with this varnish, and I applied many drops all over the tongue. I also used a dry brush to paint the inside of the mouth with fluorescent varnish. To make the tongue look moist, I gave it glossy varnish. Well, tongue's ready, let's see if it fits in the mouth. Oh my gosh, I don't think it's gonna fit. Phew, I thought I was gonna have to widen its mouth. The last thing to do is to solder the LED. And be sure to use a resistor, otherwise the LED won't last long. Hopefully it's bright enough. Turn it on. Wow, that looks cool. Such a ghostly and mysterious light. Well, even though I didn't get it finished in time for Halloween, it still turned out pretty great. I am planning to make some videos about the World of Warcraft, but I don't know if you're interested. Or maybe you have other ideas, write in the comments, nothing is more important to me than your opinion. Thanks for your support, I won't promise anything, but I will try to make videos more often. All I ask from you is to rate the video, share it with your friends, you know what to do. Thanks again and bye.